Have you ever felt that behind everything you experience, there's something silently guiding you? As if, amid the noise of the world, there's a specific frequency trying to communicate with you, not through words, but through intuitions, discomforts, and subtle signs. Most people are too distracted to notice. The clock dictates time, money dictates priority, and routine dictates the path. But there is another rhythm, more subtle, more internal, that begins to pulse when you stop running and start listening. That rhythm doesn't come from the world, it comes from within. It's the invisible calling. This calling doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it only whispers. There is something more, and you know it. But most people silence that whisper. We're taught from an early age that thinking is dangerous, feeling is weakness, and imagining is a waste of time. We were conditioned to look outward for meaning, when the answer was always within. And that's when everything begins to distort. You start to believe that reality is something fixed, immutable, a stage where you merely play a role. But what if everything were the opposite? What if the world you see were, in fact, the reflection of what you believe? What if each thought were a seed cast into an invisible field, shaping time, people, meetings, and misalignments? It's not about magic, it's about awareness. About understanding that the universe doesn't react to what you want. It responds to what you are. And what are you right now? Perhaps a bundle of haste, fear, and repetition, or a fertile field, ready to remember its own power. The mind that shapes the universe is not the mind that repeats. It's the mind that perceives its own patterns, perceives what it's silently creating, perceives that reality is not something that happens to you, but something that is born from you. Yes, your mind shapes the universe, but not in the way you imagine. It doesn't change the world like pressing a button. It transforms the world by transforming itself. Because what you see out there is merely the outer form of what vibrates within. And if you don't change what vibrates, nothing changes. What's holding you back today? A bill that won't balance? A relationship that suffocates? A job that doesn't represent you? None of that is the problem. It's the reflection. You can fix the surface as many times as you want, change cities, partners, careers. But if the mind keeps operating in the same pattern, the universe will keep responding with the same scripts. And there is no escape from what you haven't yet learned. That's why so many restart and end up in the same place. They change the scenery, but not the frequency. And the universe, obedient as it is, simply replicates what was requested. More of the same. Now pause for a moment and think, what thoughts have you repeated most over the past few days? What ideas have you fed, even without noticing? What fears have you accepted as truths? Those thoughts were seeds, and seeds don't ask permission to sprout. They simply follow the soil. And the soil is you. If you feel paralyzed, stuck, exhausted, rest assured. It's not for lack of strength. It's from an excess of distortion. You've been trying to build something new with old blocks, inherited ideas, borrowed beliefs, recycled fears. But no new cycle begins without a rupture, without a breaking point between who you were and who you're ready to become. That rupture hurts, because it requires you to let go not of the world, but of the story you told about it. It's like waking from a dream that felt too real. At first there's denial, then emptiness. But if you cross that interval, on the other side, there's clarity. And clarity is not gentle. It doesn't give you everything. It shows you everything. And in showing, it forces you to choose. Either you keep reacting to reality, or you begin to shape it. And to shape it, you must. Remember that every thought is a command. Remember that every focus is a lens. Remember that every repeated emotion is a magnet. You are always creating, even when you don't realize it, even when you think you're not in control, because the mind never stops, and the universe doesn't judge. It only translates. And the question remains, what have you been asking reality to repeat? Enough of living on autopilot. This is the moment to rewrite the code, to pause the noise, to look within and answer, without fear, what kind of universe am I shaping with who I've become? Because life doesn't change when you wish. It changes when you decide to change who you are while you wish. And that change doesn't come with haste. It comes with presence. Presence to feel what's holding you back. Presence to hear what moves you. Presence to transform the mind, not with force, but with vision. And vision can't be bought. Vision is cultivated. And if you've come this far, you've already started to cultivate it. Nothing in the universe is random. Even what seems like chaos carries an invisible order. And that order does not reveal itself to those who live on autopilot. It shows itself to those who learn to listen. Listen to what? What vibrates, what repeats, what you yourself are emitting, even without realizing it. Have you ever entered a place where everything felt light, even without words? Or another, where the heaviness was almost physical, even though everything was silent? That's not coincidence, that's frequency. Everything vibrates, and everything responds to vibration. Thoughts, although invisible, are energy in motion. And energy, by its very nature, propagates, connects, and attracts what resonates with it. That's why a pessimistic mind will always find reasons to prove its tragedy. And an expanding mind will always find gaps, paths, bridges. It's not magic, it's resonance. Your external life will always be a reflection of the frequency you sustain internally. And that frequency is not defined by what you say you want, but by what you truly feel when no one is watching. You may declare a desire to prosper, but if deep down you vibrate with fear of losing, guilt for receiving, or the belief that you don't deserve it, the universe picks up that hidden message and acts accordingly. It doesn't react to your speech, it responds to your emission. This is the turning point. You don't attract what you desire, you attract what you are. And what you are is defined by what you sustain, repeat, and feed. Now take a deep breath and observe. What emotions have you been sustaining daily? Irritation, anxiety, impatience, or silent gratitude, quiet enthusiasm, genuine presence? That is what shapes. That is what defines the landscape around you. And when you change the frequency, the landscape changes. Because the mind is not just an observer of reality, it is a broadcaster of reality. You're not here just to watch, you're here to shape. But to shape with awareness, you need to know your own internal field. Every unexpressed emotion becomes a field of repetition. Every unquestioned belief becomes a distorted lens. And every misaligned intention becomes silent sabotage. That's why changing the frequency is more than thinking positively. It's aligning thought, emotion, and action with the truth of what you want to build. It's moving from shallow wanting to deep being. Do you want to create a freer life? Then observe. Do you feel free inside, even on your most ordinary days? Or do you still operate with guilt, fear, a need for approval? Do you want to build abundance? Then reflect. When someone around you prospers, do you feel inspired or envious? Do you genuinely feel happy or carry a quiet discomfort? These questions are keys, because they reveal what your frequency is sustaining when you're not trying to impress anyone. And that is what shapes your reality. The universe doesn't judge, it only listens. It listens to what your vibration says, and it returns it in the form of people, experiences, opportunities, or blocks. And here's the most important point. You can change this, but change isn't forced. It's tuned. You don't change by fighting the old. You change by aligning with the new. And the new begins with a simple but powerful act, observing without judgment. When you start noticing your patterns without guilt, without haste, and without victimhood, the frequency already begins to shift. Because where there is presence, there is adjustment. And where there is adjustment, there is creation. But creation doesn't happen in a straight line. It dances. It requires silence, listening, and patience. It asks you to trust the invisible before the visible manifests. This is the true act of power, to create with intention, even when there is still no external evidence, to maintain the frequency, even when everything seems to collapse, to sustain the vision, even when the world hasn't yet responded. Those who learn this master reality, not through control, but through resonance, not through force, but through coherence. And that coherence begins in the invisible, in the kind of dialogue you have with yourself, in how you react to challenges, in the choice of where you place your focus when you're alone. Your mind is an antenna. It both receives and emits. And the quality of that emission depends on how well you know, care for, and clear your internal field. Clearing the field isn't about avoiding pain. It's about facing what hurts with presence, welcoming what bothers with curiosity, transforming what weighs you down with awareness. That's why self-knowledge is not a luxury. It's a creation tool. Those who don't know their own mind keep shaping a confusing universe, full of repetitions, sabotage, and misalignments. But those who learn to observe their internal states begin to direct their energy. And where energy goes, reality bends. Yes, your mind shapes the universe, but it only shapes what you have the courage to feel and the clarity to sustain. From now on, the game changes. You are no longer a victim of random fate. You are the emitting center of a reality that can and should be updated. And that update begins with a gesture. Observing what you've been feeling, reviewing what you've been believing, and firmly deciding the new frequency you will sustain. The past doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long you've been repeating the same pattern. The universe is in no hurry. It only needs coherence. And if today you sustain, even in silence, a new intention, the world around you will begin to respond. Everything you call life is in fact a mirror, a silent reflection of what you vibrate, feel, think, and above all believe. But the most surprising part isn't the reflection. It's how much you fight against it, as if the mirror were the problem. As if, by breaking the image, the essence would change. You change the scenery, move to a new city, switch companies, change people. But the inner landscape remains the same, and the reflection returns, with new clothes, new voices, but the same script. Because the universe doesn't respond to your address, it responds to your state. And as long as your state is one of fear, unworthiness, haste, scarcity, life will deliver more situations that echo that same sound. That may be hard to hear, but it's liberating. Because it means you can change everything, as long as you accept the reflection as a message, not as punishment. As long as you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to show me about myself? That's the point where transformation begins. When you leave the role of the victim and enter the role of the conscious creator. But for that, courage is needed. Courage to accept that external conflicts are only revealing internal disorder. Courage to admit that you've been outsourcing your peace, your strength, your direction, and more than that, courage to sustain a new pattern even when the world insists on repeating the old one. Reality doesn't change with haste. It changes with consistency. And consistency begins where most give up, in the gap between the moment you decide to change and the moment the reflection finally shifts. That gap is a testing field. That's where the universe observes you, not with judgment, but with precision. It observes whether you've truly changed or just wish to change, whether you're acting from new awareness or merely trying to manipulate the old scene. Because reality is not deceived. It listens to the truth of your frequency. And if your frequency still screams lack, even when your mouth says confidence, the reflection will be faithful to the lack. That's why transforming reality requires more than intention. It requires integrity, energetic integrity, vibrational coherence, emotional presence. It means sustaining on the inside what you want to see on the outside. Even if the world hasn't responded yet. Even if no one believes. Even if everything still looks the same. Because that's when the reflection starts to reorganize. Have you noticed how some people seem to attract opportunities, encounters, synchronicities with ease? It's not luck, it's resonance. It is the result of a frequency that S already aligned internally, even before the external evidence. And the opposite is also true. Those who vibrate disorder, even with good intentions, keep repeating chaos. Those who carry guilt, even when generous, keep attracting scarcity. Those who harbor resentment, even while desiring love, live surrounded by distance. That's why true cleansing is internal. It's not about cutting ties, changing everything, excluding people. It's about reordering the field, letting go of what no longer serves, transforming the emotion that contaminates, making space for the new to land. But creating space requires detachment. You don't build the new by trying to preserve the old. You build the new when you have the courage to empty, and emptying hurts. Because the ego loves control, loves to guarantee the next step, loves to be certain of what comes next. But the universe doesn't work through control. It works through trust, silent trust. Trust that holds the invisible until it manifests. Trust that knows the reflection is changing, even when the mirror still looks the same. Now, look at your life as if you were standing before a great mirror. No drama, no criticism, just observe. What is it reflecting about your internal states? Maybe you see emotional repetitions, abandonment, rejection, humiliation, or maybe subtler patterns, stagnation, frustration, constant anxiety. All of these are mirrors, and none of them are punishing you. They're trying to show you where your field needs updating. And updating the field is deep work. Work of self-responsibility, of presence, of listening. You begin to see that nothing is personal. Everything is energetic. That the person who hurts you is not the enemy. They were just a reflection of something unresolved within. That the stalled project isn't bad luck. It is just a mismatch between intention and vibration. That scarcity isn't a fate. It is a symptom of a field still operating in survival mode. And then, something shifts. You stop fighting with life. You start conversing with it. Each obstacle becomes a clue. Each pain, a code. Each repetition, an invitation. Reality becomes a teacher, and you, an attentive student. That's when you exit reactive mode and enter creative mode. And when that happens, the universe reorganizes. Because now you are no longer trying to fix the reflection. You are changing the source. You begin to act with intention, to feel with more awareness, to think with more clarity, to live with more ease. And the world responds. People arrive. Doors open. Currents align, not by miracle, but by resonance. Reality is a mirror. It always was. But now you understand. What reflects outward is what you sustain within. And if the inner changes, everything changes. There comes a moment when the game changes. Not because the world got easier, but because you became more conscious. It's when you stop chasing answers and start asking truer questions. When you stop wishing for external change and begin making internal moves. When you understand unequivocally that you are the origin, the center, the starting point. And that starting point isn't in tomorrow. It's not in the course, the book, the right person. It's here, now, within you. Because among everything life can take from you, there is something no one can touch. Your ability to choose the vibration you will sustain in the face of what happens. You may not control the world, but you can choose how you'll position yourself within it. And that choice shapes the world around you. This is the shift that changes everything. When you stop acting as a reflection and start acting as a source. You become the source when you stop repeating inherited patterns. When you choose to feel without fear, act with intention, think with clarity. You become the source when you decide to be faithful to what you feel, not to what others expect of you. When you trade control for presence, haste for precision, fear for vision. And this choice isn't easy. It requires internal ruptures. It demands saying no to the old version of yourself, the one that only knew how to survive, adapt, justify. You are no longer in that phase. Now your movement is different. It's the movement of someone who wants to live with coherence. Someone who no longer seeks to look good, but to be whole. Someone who is willing to leave behind the comfort of victimhood to embrace the discomfort of being a creator. And that changes everything. Because the creator doesn't ask, will this work out? They ask, what is the next step aligned with what I want to build? They don't wait for motivation, they build structure. They don't negotiate with fear, they move through it. This kind of consciousness is rare, but you're accessing it now. And with it comes a great responsibility, no longer blaming the world, no longer outsourcing your power, no longer repeating the old script. You've already understood. The universe responds to your vibration. So what will you choose to sustain from now on? Will you sustain doubt or decision? Will you sustain victimhood or vision? Will you sustain repetition or presence? The choice is yours. It always has been. And every choice carries a vibration, and every vibration shapes reality. It's simple. It's profound and real. And if you've made it this far, you're no longer the same. Because now you know, you shape the universe. When you shape your consciousness, you create a new reality. When you create a new vibration, you transform the world. When you transform yourself. If this message awakened something inside you, don't ignore it. These inner signals, no matter how subtle they seem, are silent invitations to a new phase of your consciousness. Like this video, it helps spread this clarity to more people who are ready to break free from the cycle of waiting. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to keep receiving content that provokes, awakens, and redirects you back to the essential. Write in the comments, I choose to shape my reality based on what I vibrate, not on what I lack. This simple act of writing may be your first gesture of alignment. When you declare, you anchor. When you write, you transform desire into decision. This channel is for those who have decided to leave survival mode and start creating with coherence, courage, and truth. If you felt that, then you've already begun. See you in the next video. Until then, keep your vibration clean, your focus clear, and your essence steady. You're already shaping more than you imagine.